Hey everyone, this is Sonia Jones of GIP Financials. This is our second recording where we're talking about the fiscal year budget. So if you did not see the first video where I talked about how you kind of shore up your planning for the current fiscal year budget, make sure that you check out that video that I posted last week. So today I'm going to give you some best practices for how to set up your budget for the next fiscal year. And so the date of this recording is June 17th. And as of today, the nonprofit, the school I work for, we officially approved our fiscal year 22 budget today. So we got at least one part of it situated. So now I got to go in there and plan it out by month and possibly even do a multi-year budget, but that'll be probably, a couple months down the road, if not next month, depending on what July, August look like. So what I want to do today, as you can see here, this is the sample budget that I used for last week's video. And so I'm just going to take this and I'm going to do a little bit of review and I'm just going to walk you through my process and how I plan for the current year's budget. So, just reviewing in some of the things that we talked about on the last video, and just doing budget prep in general. First off, don't be a hero and do not attempt to try to um, revise your budget all in one day. And if you're a person that looks at numbers and words a lot like I do, and in front of a computer all day, it can be very cumbersome on your eyes and get tired easily. So if I were you, however your budget is organized, the budget at my school is pretty much divided up in four major categories. I would just do a section at a time. That way you can hone in on it. You won't have to take your whole day to work on it. And don't forget also to, set a reminder on your phone, get up and stretch, walk around, take some breaks. And especially when it comes to like budgets and even payroll, give yourself at least a couple of hours away from it so you can get some clarity and go back and look at it with a fresh set of eyes. Okay. And the next thing, as you're pacing yourself, sort your budget plan based off what you can tolerate for the day. Like I said, mine is in four sections. Some sections are easier than others. Like as far as my expenses, I try to, because there's way is so many more expenses than a revenue budget line item. So I will take, just a portion of those expenses and just work on them. Okay. Do what's best for you, but please, I'm on bending knee. Do not try to do this all in one day. And then also what I talked about was um, to kind of personalize your own, coding system, if you will, for your budget. Okay. And if you have a team around you that helps you with budget planning, you might want to communicate to them what your colors and symbols look like. But if not, if you're the only one looking at the budget, then sky's the limit. But I would highly encourage that you use, if you're in Google Sheets, your comments. If you're in Excel, use your notes um, to be able to provide detailed, you know, information and also track your thoughts as well. So that was something. I thought I heard something. Okay. So what I want to do now is just to kind of walk you through, like I said, what I do. And if you see here at the bottom, I have revenue, I have expenses, I have staff, but I also have like a sample salary. So we're going to walk through some things just so you can see kind of what the different components are to the budget, because I know before when we were talking about the current budget, we didn't go through salary and benefits and all that good stuff. And I'm also going to show you what the budget versus actual looks like on a monthly basis as well. So first things first, is I'm looking at the revenue. And just to give you a brief run through, this is the actual column, right? What you've actually spent this fiscal year. This column is what you planned on spend or receiving since it's revenue, what you planned on receiving this fiscal year. Column B is what you actually received so far this fiscal year. And also, just as a reminder, when you're doing your budget versus actual, especially for the purposes of budget planning for the next fiscal year, if you're using something like QuickBooks, make sure that the data range is for this fiscal year and it's covering July 1st to June 30th. So although we're not at June 30th just yet, the calculations you want in the entirety of the budget. Because if you do year to date, it's only going to give you the budget from July 1st to June 17th, and that's not accurate. That's not going to really help you in this particular planning process. So just wanted to remind you of that. And depending on the software that you use, like I said, I'm a QuickBooks chick, so they're going to also provide in the export of the budget versus actual, like your variance, like if you're over budget, under budget, and also it'll give you the percentage of the budget that you've already received or consumed if it's a expense. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my actual compared to my budget. And if there is a noticeable, like huge variance, I'm going to highlight that column or highlight this cell rather yellow. So right here under state funding, our budgeted revenue was 3.27 million. Right now we're at 3.21. It looks like we're pretty much, on target there. So I'm going to leave that alone. Okay. For federal funding, our budget is 217. We received 149 so far, but if you can tell, we've only received 68% of that. So I'm going to highlight that yellow. And then also see if I can do the blessed annotate. It didn't do all, it went all that hot for me last time. So on this one, I want to draw a down arrow just so I know I'm looking at this. This yellow means that I need to review it because the actual is under what our budget should be. And if I know any particular reasons why, I'm going to go back through QuickBooks, get a more detailed version of this particular federal funding line item, and then provide some notes in the comment section of Google Sheets. So the next thing is donations. As you can see, there's a big variance here as well because the budget amount was 210,000, but we've only received 18. So that's a big one. And on that one, this is what I want. I think that's what I want. Oh, that's not what I want. How did I get back to that little pen? Is that it? No, that's not it. I gotta go out and go back in. There we go. Okay, so I got another down arrow. Lease and rentals. So if you can see here, it's actually the opposite. We received over 88,000 and the budget was 12. So I'm gonna color that one yellow also, but I'm gonna wait though. It's on draw. I'm just making a mental note here. I'm gonna go back and highlight my stuff in a minute. A la carte sales. Here we budgeted for 600 and we only received 100. And so given that the year is almost over, I'm going to look at that. And then also, if you can see, we received $1,000 in local funding. But obviously this was something that we weren't expecting because we didn't budget for it. Okay. So with that, I'm going to put an arrow there. I'm going to click out, go to my little filler up thingy. And so I've addressed all of these. So if you noticed on the first video, I've already kind of made some notes here already. So you can either put them here on the side, or if you want to, I think Google Sheets has notes too. You can either add a note here or you can do a comment. Now, I'm not super versed on Google Sheets, but I know like if you comment and your document is shared with other people, they can see what you commented on. But if you just want a private note, you can just insert a note there. So for donations here, the reason why we had such a gap is because our summer funding wasn't received. So I'll just add that there. And keep in mind, like I said before, too, these notes are going to be beneficial when you start preparing your next year's budget as you present it to the board, and the board see these variances, like this big gap here, there's a difference in 192K, then you'll already have the reason why that variance is there. I would personally like sending my budget with the notes so the board members can see the specifics, right, in my commentary. So that's just me. And thing here with the lease and rentals, we can probably put here, let's see, contract revision, and I'll just put that increase in square foot usage plus additional repairs to leased area. Because in some cases, if you in a particular area of your campus that you're not using, you want to lease it out for different purposes. If they have to do paint or maintenance in that area, then they will be responsible for those costs as well. So we always want to make sure that we have an explanation, like I said. For a la carte sales, this can easily be due to um, low revenue due to in-person learning starting March the 1st. And so we use a la carte sales for like parents who want to purchase extra shirts and stuff like that. And like I said, because we were in school for only a couple, March, April, May, June, 4 months, then we didn't have a lot of people ordering shirts and stuff like that, or at least buying extras. So, and then local funding, I can put here that this was a community grant for, say, hotspot support. Okay, so that's how I would initially start off with the budget planning. So I'm going through my current year to see what the variants are. And the next thing I want to think of is based off of those variants or those scenarios, like just for this year, or do I need to consider thinking about those costs for the next fiscal year? So with that being said, now what I want to do, assuming like I've done all my other categories, I'm going to take that revenue, I'm going to take this tab and I'm going to duplicate it. See what happens. Okay. It's still there. Okay, not bad. All right. And so I'm going to rename this fiscal year 22 revenue. And just FYI, when I'm doing my budget for the school that I work for, the whole budget is on one worksheet, but I've got it separated here for for your review. But if you want to separate out your budget categories, hey, this is your budget. Whatever works for you, works for you. But just keep in mind when it comes to like the calculations and trying to get um your net income and stuff like that to see if you broke even or if you got a loss or if you got a surplus, it'll probably be best to have your whole budget on one. At least have a master, if you will, on one tab, and then you can sort everything else later if you want to. So what I normally do here, I will take out the variance. Okay. And what I will do next is just put fiscal year 22 budget. And I think, just for tracking purposes, if you want to make it a different color or just, so you know where you are. And so what I'll do now is just consider these variances and I will add my figures here. So starting with state funding, because of the fact, so in real world, the state funding is based off of per pupil application, right? Per allocation, not application, allocation. So we normally it'll be between $8,000 and $9,000 per child, and I will take that and then multiply it by our anticipated projected enrollment for next school year. So with that being said, because we don't get that particular per pupil information until like late May, early June, um, as I'm planning the budget, no, in most cases pre-COVID, I would be starting on the budget like in January. So in that regard, I would just copy the same amount, 32,77,000, and just make sure that you put your, matter of fact, just do the whole column. There you go. And so in this regard, I would just make sure, let's try it. There you go. Probably not what I wanted. I don't want that. Let me erase it. I think they got arrows. Let's try it. Oh, look at that. All right, shoot. I can make some real arrows. So what I would do in this case, if I take an arrow and point it like I'm going forward or pointed towards the right, that means I'm going to carry that figure over to the new fiscal year budget. Okay. And then I will also add a comment probably here or in the notes that, let me see, pending per pupil allocation from what we call the LEA or your district. And what I do for figures that are pending change, that I know eventually will be changed, I put them in a text of red. Okay, so that's what that means. Say for example here, for a la carte sales, since this one has a lower actual amount, however, because this is a situational thing, right? This was only because of COVID. Next school year, we're going to be in school the entire year. All right. So in this case, I'm going to move this amount forward. I'm going to give it a 600. And because this is pretty much ironclad, I like putting all my confirmed figures in green. That's what I do. And the items, like I said, that are in green, they're pretty much are going to stay the same. I'm not anticipating any change. As far as local funding here, because this was a one-time situation, I will probably just keep that at 0. and that will be confirmed. Because if the board is looking at this and they see, well, why is she not budgeting for this? And they see that was a community grant for hotspot support. So they know that was just for, you know, COVID. All right. So for the lease rentals, I'm going to look at this a little differently because we had budgeted for 12,000, but we ended up getting 88. Huge increase, right? So if you look at the notes, it says contract revision, increase in square foot usage, plus additional repairs to the lease area. So we know that those additional repairs was a one-time thing. So what I would probably do is go in QuickBooks. I will print off this budget line item, and then I will take the total and subtract all of those one-time repair costs to kind of get a glimpse of what our actual invoices would have looked like without the repairs. So in this instance, say that there may be a slight increase, right? So I would probably put here, oh, let's do about 15,000. Right, because we did have in the commentary that there was a revised contract. And because we have not signed the new contract, I'm going to make that red and then insert a note to say pending fiscal year 22 contract negotiation. And if you got anything that you want to put here, like say, don't forget to include new vendor services, such as, I'll just put something like waste, copier, what's another one? Say utilities, something like that. If you want to just add something there for for your memory's sake. Okay, so that's that. Let's look at donations. So on this one, if we know that our summer funding is going to come back, and then we got this 18,000, I would be safe to go ahead and put 218,000. Now, in some cases, if you don't have the funding commitment, you might want to put that in red. But in this instance, if we know that the funding is committed, it's committed plus fiscal year 21 actual of 18K. I put 200K. Summer funding is committed. So that's what I put there. And then for the federal funding, in this regard, most of the time when you get federal funding for schools, there's already a set allocation. So in this regard, if we have been given the allocation of 217 and we've only received 149, that means there's some reimbursements that haven't been paid out, or we still have some reimbursements to submit. So in that case, that will be moved forward. However, because we will not get the new allocation for our federal funding until school starts back, I will put that in red, and I will insert a note pending fiscal year 22 allocation. Because one thing I do know is that those figures go up every year. So worst case scenario, we'll get what we got last year. I've never been in a situation where we didn't get higher and higher allocation in the year before, or allocation below what we got the year before. So for planning purposes, it's just better for me just to move that figure forward. So that's pretty much what my budget planning looks like. And yes, even in You don't have to have all of your figures confirmed in green before the budget proposal. Especially in this instance, like when I submitted the budget for our school, we still had things like the health insurance and stuff like that we haven't talked about in, with our broker, but I just kept the same figures that we had for this year. With, another thing that you have to be mindful of is that you have to pay attention to the year to year trends. So, a common trend for medical benefits for us is that we normally see a 4% increase in our medical benefits. For retirement, depending on the type of um, category the employee is in, for us, most of our certified teachers are in the 10% employer contribution range. Um, and then our non-instructionals are probably at a 6% on average employer contribution, because remember, when you're doing the budget, especially with those benefits and stuff, you're primarily budgeting out just the employer only contribution. Okay, so just FYI. And let me see here. I think I get everything I wanted to show on that one. And like I said, the same process will be the same going forward for the other categories. So I'm looking at my notes here just to make sure I got everything. Let's see. Yep. And so what I wanted to show you next is the some of the other spreadsheets that I use when I'm calculating, especially personnel and stuff like that. So we talked about benefits, right? Okay, so let me clear out all my doodads here. Get out of there. Get. All right, so this is a sample of one of the spreadsheets that I actually use for our fiscal year budget. And so what this does is give me several points of information. One is showing me the actual like total gross of that employee. So that's what the green section is. My mouse, so I won't accidentally erase anything. Then the blue part is our retirement. And then this like dark orange part, that's our medical insurance. And if we kind of wanted to see like how much we're actually spending on all of our employees for everything, that's what that like neon purple full gross is. Okay. So as you can see here, I've got the payroll category. You will have your person's name here, if they're full-time or part-time. Most of the time, if it's when we're talking about benefits, it will 9 times out of 10 be a full-time employee. You see you have the employee salaries here. If the employee has any other additional stipends or income, I will put that here. So like the associate teacher also works aftercare after school. So that would be an additional $5,000 for them for the school year. One of our support staff works for as a bus monitor, just for example, hypothetically speaking. And then that will be an additional almost $4,000 a year. So if we're talking about retirement, like I said, for Tennessee, we have the TCRS, Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System. You got 3 categories. You got legacy certified. Those are all the teachers that were in the system prior to July 1st, 2014. Then you got the hybrid, all the certified teachers that were added to the system after July 1st, 2014, or they were a previous certified legacy person and they pulled all their retirement out, rolled it over to somewhere else. So if you do something like that, then you pretty much have to start over from scratch. So you have to come in based off of the date that you came back into the system. So I'll use myself for example. So I worked at Memphis City Schools with in 0506. I was pregnant with Gyra. Um, so I was contributing to TCRS. because nobody really communicated to me the importance of just kind of holding it in there. I pulled it out, and when I went back to teaching at the private school I was at, I just rolled it over into their retirement, the cafeteria plan do that. So as I came back, working at the charter school, and had I been back in my teaching position, I would be considered hybrid. But since I'm in a non-instructional position, I am part of the support category. So just giving you kind of a context of what that looks like. So the employer contribution, I don't know if you can see the formula up here. So you just take the total gross salary, and this was the rate from this current school year, the 0.0529. And like I said, because we don't know those rates just yet, um, I will just take those figures and just move them forward. So just so you can see how you can calculate these things, and then the employee contribution for the retirement, everybody has to contribute 5%. So that's how I got that formula right there. Okay. Now with the medical status, let me do this too. You could do, if you wanted to, see if you let me do it. If you want to like freeze your columns and stuff like that. Now, granted, I don't know where, oh, here it is. Freeze. Well, let you freeze two columns. Okay, I'll take it. So, just for tracking purposes. So, if I wanted to see kind of where um, the insurance status was of our associate teacher up here at the top, because most of our associate teachers are younger, they're still able to stay on insurance with their parents. So they waive our insurance. So that's pretty typical in this situation. Um, so in that regard, that's why you have the W's there and no amounts. So you have a lead teacher that's employee only. This is where once we get those figures from the insurance company, then we can go ahead and start plugging those numbers in. And then the same thing, like if the employee has employee and spouse, it'll be ES with those tiered amounts. If it's employee with children, like head of household, EC, same thing. Those particular, contributions, employer and employee. And then last but not least, if the employee has full family coverage, I will use the code FAM for family. So that's how that works. And then everything is totaled out. Now I'll use this information to put in the big spreadsheet. Now, one of the other things that I also do as well is because all of our staff aren't in the same staffing category. We got, like I said, 4 departments. I would add another column here just to reference those different categories. And once all the information is in there, I can resort it based off category, based off of position, based off full-time, part-time, however I want to manipulate that data, I can rearrange it. Okay. So that is the sample benefits. And so let me show you a sample salary. So in this case, what I have here is just some hypothetical, like I said, information. All the information has been changed. So, but I did want to show you, like, here are the department codes that I was telling you about that we use, those 4 departments. And so I would just copy these and put them into the benefits just so I can be able to play with the data. So here's the department code. We got categories. Of course, we would have name in there, but we don't have that for, for teaching purposes. We got status. And as you can see in status, full-time is white, part-time is blue. If the employee receives a stipend, that's in green. So just FYI. I love to color code things and make sure that I have a good key. I try to keep the prior year's salaries based off of when the employee came, just so we can kind of see how the growth is and the salary projections and stuff like that, because there will be some jumps kind of based off if they achieve licensure or a merit increase or something like that. So it's always good to kind of have those prior years for context purposes. So you got prior year, the current year, and then the next year's salary. um and you can do that next year's salary based off of if you guys do bonuses, not bonuses, but like raises, like standard, like cost of living raise or no raise, nothing like that. You can always kind of um add that information. Like here, I would add a note and say based on like 2% cost of living raise, whatever it is. And so that's what the salaries look like. If there is a situation where let me see, like if I have a new employee, I'm trying to look see how I can do this. So say for example we have a newbie. um in most cases they wouldn't have any figures here, but just for teaching's sake all this will be out and it'll just be um the next year's salary if we were hiring somebody from scratch. And I will highlight this whole row like a darker green, but I'll use this one for today. That'll let me know that that's a new hire. If there is a situation where somebody is going to a different department or something like that, I would highlight the position yellow with just a brief saying moving to um let's see, third grade science, whatnot. And that would be that. Okay. And then, like I said, some of the other positions here, you've got, excuse me, your stipends. And if there's a situation where you think anything's going to be possibly adjusted pending any type of decisions, you will highlight those things yellow and always add a note. Okay. If you know that there's going to be some significant pay increases, like I said, due to licensure and stuff like that, please make sure that you put that in your budget. Because depending on how your board is, if they want to see everything in detail or a list of the staff and what they're making, which is they can do that, I would just make sure that to keep things anonymous, I would not add personal names. I would just add positions. So it's just FYI, because they have the right to do so. But this is what the sample salary budget looks like. And truth be told, this particular, though these figures in this next year's salary should reflect what you got in the sample benefits under total salary. Okay, so that is that. And what was my other thing? Okay, that was from last time. Oh, I wanted to show you the budget versus budget versus actual monthly. So I pulled this from QuickBooks just so you can see it. I did make some changes. So as you can see, you've got your major categories and you got your subcategories. And then as you can see here, what QuickBooks does, it'll give you what you originally budgeted for the month and then how much you actually spent within that month and your variance. So that's what this looks like. Now there will also be, depending on if you how you customize it, the percentage that you will use here. And like I said, I particularly like using the percentages because that lets me know, especially like with utilities and stuff, you're gonna spend less probably like in the fall, in the springtime, right? You're always gonna probably pay more in the summertime and in the winter for obvious reasons because you're using more air in the summertime and more heat in the winter. So it's good to see when those increases occur. So that's when that percentage portion really helps out a whole lot. Okay, so I just kind of wanted you to see that. So it's yeah, to sort it out by month. And you notice I consolidated some of these, just depending on like how it's exported out of QuickBooks. It can be a little wonky, but the information is still good. So you can go all the way down until you get to the total. Ooh, excuse me, y'all saw the yawning. And this will give you the annual budget, which you plan from July 1st to June 30th. That's what that is. Okay. So this will be your budgeted amount. This would be the actual, and that would be the variance right there. Okay. So I'm just make sure I covered everything. Did that. Yep. And so like I said, the thing I can't stress enough is just know what your board wants to see. So I'm gonna go back here to the fiscal year 22 budget. And I had to learn this the hard way. I felt like for me that I had to do something very elaborate and lavish, and they don't want to know all that. And I asked our board treasurer what he wanted to see, and he was like, I just want last year's or current year, this year, and why. I was like, you got it, Chief. And that's what I did. And from that point, everything's been pretty smooth. I do also like to include what we call like a budget summary or budget strategy, just to emphasize like the big highlights in the budget, like staffing, always revenue, staffing needs, and any other like big needs that may be of concern or some questions that we have not been able to answer from a budget perspective, right? So, and if there's things like going into the budget, we'll probably see like, it might be time for us to renegotiate our contract with our HVAC or something like that, just so we can see how we can adjust costs and stuff like that. And like I said, the budget is a living, breathing document. Please put all hands on deck. If you have any departmental heads, like your office manager, should be covering all the office supplies, in her budget, his budget, or her budget. The principal should be responsible for most of the administrative costs, PD, all things instructional. So just be kind of mindful of that because you're going to need some help, and always ask them kind of like, I know this is your department, like the CIO, anything dealing with technology services, the E-rate funding, um, uh, our equipment that we use during the school, like our projectors, and not just laptops and Chromebooks and all that, but also our projectors. Would there be any labor cost, any outsourced labor that will take place, stuff like that, and let them do those budgets, right? I just tell my people all the time, just like, give me what I call your wish list per se, but just know that it's not going to be set in stone. We're going to have to go through, I'll take all their numbers, I'll put it in the budget, and I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom. And if that net income has a negative amount, we got to go back and make some adjustments, because it has to be at least at break even point or have some surplus, so your board members won't flip out on you and freak out. Okay. So I hope this was helpful. And like I said, this is pretty much how I do our budget. Like I said, I know most of this was geared toward nonprofits, but small businesses, you guys can use the same thing as well. If you're in QuickBooks, you have a profit and loss. You can take a look at it also and use all these techniques to ensure that you are good cash flow wise for the remaining months of the year. So this is all I got. I hope that you guys um, learned something from it. I would love your feedback in the comments below. And also, just to let you know, if you're looking at this and you're getting overwhelmed and you're like, how in the world is she able to do this every day? I would be probably under the covers looking at this for 5 minutes. That's what I'm here for. So if you would like a free consultation, um, make sure that you go to the link tree. I have the copy of the link tree link in the description, and you can schedule a free consultation with me there. And if you would like to receive continual info from me, get on my email list. It is also on the link tree link as well. If you go to the very first uh, little button up there at the top and sign up for the free training of the 3 financial mistakes that most small businesses make. You can, once I get your email address, we go together. I got you at least your email for a little while until you subscribe, and hopefully that you won't unsubscribe. And so I will be sending you guys specific information that I received from the SBA, um, from our state departments, local municipalities. If there's anything for small business that you need to be aware of, I've already signed up for it and I'm just pushing it out to my clients all day long. Okay. So, like I said, there's plenty of ways to get with me, but make sure that you click on the link tree below. I'm on Facebook, Instagram under GIP_financials, and I'm on LinkedIn under Sonia Jones. Okay. So take care, you guys. The next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about PPP forgiveness. So stay tuned. Peace.